welcome to our broadcast. Good to be here with you guys. It is March the 8th where we are, and we're thankful that each and every one of you can join us today. There are two bits of important articles appearing in today's Stabrook News, and we think we ought to share some of the content of that with you because it's so important. They touch and concern some national issues, and we're heading further into this political season, and things are fast-paced and fast-moving. That by the time we get to Monday, these may not be remembered, but we think they were important enough that we wanted to come on and share them with you. Thanks each and every one of you for joining us today. It's not a day we're usually on, but thank you guys so much. And we're going to invite you just the same to share the live and smash that emoji button. Good to have each and every one of you on with us. And as you can see up on the screen here, there's this article appearing in today's Stabrook News, and it touch and concerns, as I said, this is the Belle Vue pump station. This piece of reporting is being done on the Belle Vue pump station, and so the contracting company for the Belle Vue pump station is Tupoi Group, and one of its principals is the Guyanese critics, Mikhail Rodriguez. Now, things are coming to a head with concerns this very controversial contract. And here is why, folks. I want to give credit to our very own Member of Parliament, David Patterson, and also Ganesh Mahipal, because it's their intervention at the Public Procurement Commission, writing to that commission and imploring them to look at this particular contract in depth, and the Public Procurement Commission taking the onus to do that as well, to look at this contract on the advice of David Patterson and MP Ganesh Mahipal. A number of things were revealed. So I want to give you that backstory, and then I want to, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, and then I want to bring you to where we are today and this reporting out of Stabrook News. So we're talking about the Tupoi Group Incorporated, that company, and this is the tender number 166 of 2023-21. That is the tender number, and again, it's for the Belle Vue pump station, and this is in Region 3. Now, a number of things went wrong when the Public Procurement Commission did its background work on this particular contract, on this particular tender. A lot of things went wrong, and again, I really want to underscore, thanks to MP David Patterson and Ganesh Mahipal for doing the work on this, and we know now a lot of things that we didn't know when we first started. For instance, we learned that a number of things that should have qualified or should have been had by Tupoi Group Incorporated to qualify them for this particular contract were not in place, and so they failed. Every single criteria, they failed. The Public Procurement Commission, by the way, this is a constitutional agency. It has a constitutional function to investigate complaints and irregularities and mismanagement in public procurement. And these are some of the things that the Public Procurement Commission in that initial investigation uncovered. Good. Some of the initial things that they uncovered. The National Procurement and Tender Administration Board, looking at this contract, interrogating this contract with the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority. This is the NDIA. The report says that the NDIA and MPTAP, which is the tendering body, MPTAP did not submit the requested information to the Public Procurement Commission. The commission requested certain information of them to be able to scrutinize this process and scrutinize this contract. And both the NDIA and MPTAP, I really want to underscore this part as well, did not submit the requested information until it was made public that they did not want to submit this information. So much for transparency, so much for accountability, and so much for good governance. Good. So that is number one. Part of the criteria for this contract, would have been, I'll give you the backstory, would have been that Tupoi Group Incorporated should have complete projects of a similar nature in the past 5 years. Should have completed a project of similar nature in the past 5 years. Tupoi said that they had multiple projects within 3 years. Multiple projects within 3 years. This is what they were alleging. Right? This is part of what they were alleging. In addition to that, it was specified that these works that should have been carried out by the contracting company, they should have done 2 contracts of a similar nature. They should have done 2 contracts of a similar nature. Tupui Group Incorporated, according to this report, submitted contracts that they had done for a wharf and some road upgrades. For a wharf and a road upgrade. And the folks said in plain language, these were not pump stations. And these were not projects of a similar nature. Right? They did a wharf and road upgrades. And it was discovered that neither of these projects were completed. At the time when they had gotten this project for the Belle Vue pump station, neither of these projects were completed. The other thing that was interesting here, another criteria, right? Not only should they have done work of a similar nature and all of that within a 5-year period, but the experience, the company should have had experience. That was a big criteria. Tupui said they didn't have experience as a company in terms of building pump stations, but that they had personnel on board who had done similar work. That's interesting. As I said, every criteria for the award of the Tupui contract, they failed. They didn't have the experience in building pump stations, but they had personnel that they had employed who had the experience in building pump stations. And those are vastly different things. I'll give you 1 or 2 more of the things that were required for them to get this Tupui contract and where they erred. One criteria was having the financial capacity to undertake the contract, right? Through a bank statement. A bank had to back them and say they had the 10% or the 20%, how muchever it was. A bank, they didn't have that. Tupui submitted a line of credit from Puran Brothers. From Puran Brothers, they said, and Top Mix, which is not a bank or a financial institution. Puran Brothers is not a bank nor a finance institution licensed with the Bank of Guyana. They were to have the backing of a bank. They didn't have that. They had the backing of a company. So they failed that too. They failed that as well. So I'm just giving you quickly some of the issues that they should have been on top of to be awarded this contract in the first instance. And we know they were awarded the contract in the end, even though of the 20 or 25 or 30 things that the company was looking for, they failed all of them. They failed all of them, which has brought us to today and this article in the Sabbath News today for the scrutiny on the Belle Vue pump station. And folks, my Lord, the Belle Vue pump station, we are learning now, is significantly delayed. And we've been through this before with MP Ganesh Mahipal. We've been on the ground at the Belle Vue pump station. We saw it with our own eyes. But they are now confirming, this is the Public Procurement Commission, is now confirming officially, right? This is the same entity that did the review of the tender procurement procedure, the review of the contract on the instigation of David Patterson MP and MP Ganesh Mahipal. They have now come back to this contract again and found that it is significantly delayed and it is considered as non-performing by the Public Procurement Commission. It is being considered as non-performing. Listen to this. The Public Procurement Commission has found that as late as November 2024, this is just the other day, only 4% of the work was completed. Only 4% of the work was completed, while it should have been at 50%. While it should have been at 50%, only 4% was completed as of last December. Right? As of last December. And this has led the Public Procurement Commission to believe that the company cannot meet the July 29th deadline to finish this project. They cannot meet that deadline. That's what the Public Procurement is saying. Ganesh Mahi Paul has said that as well. I'm certain that David Patterson has said that as well. And now the Public Procurement Commission is coming out and saying they can't complete this contract in that time frame. Now, the Public Procurement Commission, in addition to that, they are requesting that the NDIA, who didn't want to give them the information they requested initially, you all remember that, the NDIA, the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, that they consider what actions will be taken as regards this stalled project. So it's calling on the NDIA to take action on this project. Yeah, believe it or not. And this is all stemming from the Public Procurement Commission earlier recommendations in April of 2024 that the NDIA monitor the performance of the contractor, Tupui Incorporated, and consider terminating the contract if breaches occur to ensure value for money. So while Mr. Sir, the principal, one of the principals, gallivanting and globe-trotting, perhaps in monies that were forwarded here, the project, the contract is lagging terribly behind. So the PPC, the Public Procurement Commission, they have been monitoring this project. They've been on the ground and they have said that only 4% of the project was completed as of last December. As of last December, 4% of the project. Now, Minister of Agriculture, Zulfikar Mustafa, he has his hands full. He has his hands full. Last January, in January, he noted that, listen to this, only 10% of the work has been completed and that $182 million was advanced to POI Group. Bear it in mind, in December, the Public Procurement Commission was on the ground and they said 4% was completed. And then in January, the Agriculture Minister said 10% is completed. What is a 6% here and there? But this is where we are, $182 million that was intended for mobilization costs and materials were already advanced to Tupui Group. Remember, this contract is valued at over $800 million. Minister Mustafa, according to Sabuk News, and we know this because we sit in the National Assembly too, assured the National Assembly that the project would still be completed in August. Remember, the PPC saying this cannot be done. It's impossible for this contract to be completed mid-year. Impossible. And all the minister seems to be contented with is expressing his disapproval at the pace at which the contract is being executed. Why are they not terminating the contract? Why are they not terminating the contract? Why? Even the Auditor General, according to Starbuck News reporting today, even the Auditor General visited the site last August and found that no significant work was in progress. The Auditor General, he found no significant work in progress. This is August of last year. No significant work in progress. No significant work in progress. Only preliminary activities completed, despite the contractor being mobilized. Remember, they advanced him the money to mobilize? 182 million. Yep. So there's where we are on that. 4% of the work, the PPC is saying in this reporting by Sabak News, is completed. And they do not believe that they can complete it by mid-year. And they're calling on the NDIA to take action on the project. That is one of the things we wanted to come on and talk to you about today. The other issue we wish to speak to you about, appearing in today's Sabak News as well. Thank you, Sabak News. The helicopter crash of 2023. This is the GDF helicopter crash of 2023. And it forms the basis of today's editorial in Sabak News. Today, the 8th day of March, 2025. I just want to pick through some of the issues that Sabak News raises about this. That Sabak News raises, about this helicopter crash and what has happened since then. And folks, the editorial is free reading online. So don't just take our word for it. Don't just take our word for it. You can go and read it yourself too. Now, in short, this crash, as I said, happened in 2023, towards the end of 2023. And there has been much delay to date in presenting this report. Starbuck News says in this editorial, this is troubling and it fuels speculations. And we have been speculating here. So they're right. It is troubling and fuels speculations. A part of this editorial reads that the government's failure to present the long-awaited 2023 helicopter crash report is troubling. The fastest way to put an end to speculation that has built over this tragedy is simply to present the report and its findings. Present the report and its findings. Government of Guyana. The other issue that Starbuck News raises in this editorial, government officials have made promises about the report's release, but those promises have not been fulfilled. That sounds familiar? They have made promises about the release of this report concerning this crash that happened in 2023, folks. We're in 2025, and we're still waiting for it. Starbuck News says, Minister of Works Juan Edgil was quoted in February of this year saying that he would publicly, that the report would be publicly addressed in 30 days. 30 days would have brought us to March 4th. After this report was reviewed, today is March 8th. And no report has been forthcoming. No such report, according to Starbuck News, was produced, presented, or addressed at the end of the period. Starbuck News today. Starbuck News also says in this editorial that the government's silence and withholding of information raises important questions. The editorial questions: why the delay? What is the reason for withholding the report? And every citizen must question in similar fashion. If there is nothing to hide, Starbuck News says, then why not release the report? Put an end to the growing speculation. Starbuck News finds the government's silence as not just puzzling. Starbuck News says it's concerning. Folks, just in case you didn't know, let me make it plain. We choose Starbuck News because when we as an opposition say these things, we come across as rabble-rousers. As a member of the opposition, oh, it's just the opposition making noise. It's just a new nation being facetious. It's just the key. These are publications between the PNCR and the Alliance for Change. It's just them being bothersome. But Starbuck News is a mainstream, very strong newspaper in its independent reporting. And this is what they're saying. The silence on this matter, Government of Guyana, People's Progressive Party, Civic Government of Guyana, this silence is not just puzzling, it is concerning. Very concerning. Now, Starbuck News proffers that some arguments for withholding this report, such as national security, are not entirely convincing. They are not entirely convincing at all. Some may argue that there are valid reasons for withholding such a report, such as national security concerns or protection of sensitive military information. The editorial counters that these arguments only go so far. You can only get so far with them. The public has a right to know the details of the crash, especially given the involvement of senior Guyana Defense Force personnel. We have a right to know as a public. And the editorial goes on to emphasize that the public has a right to know what happened, especially when the crash involved senior personnel from the country's defense force. And the fact that the report was promised speak volumes about the promises of this government. The editorial further argues that the victims are citizens, the worst citizens of this nation, and their families, their friends, their fellow citizens deserve answers, especially in a broader sense of a democratic society. Citizens have the right to know what is happening in their country, especially as it involves matters of national importance. And these are some of the argumentations Sabbath News is putting forward. And of course, as we said, the delay allows a lot of negative consequences like conjecture, theories, confusion, distrust. All that can spread the longer the government withholds this information. And they're already on thin ice where all these things are concerned, where all of these issues are concerned. A very untrustworthy government, as is. This editorial of the Sabbath News states that instead of addressing the issue head on, the authorities are allowing conjecture and various theories to take root and to spread. They're allowing that. And this only creates more confusion and distrust among the public, making it harder for the government to rebuild any sense of confidence in its ability to handle such situations. If this is what tripping you up, 5 men shot up by the syndicatos recently, simple issues tripping you up. How could you manage a broader front? One of the other issues that's raised in this editorial today is that this delay has significant negative impact on the families of the victims and the survivors. People want closure. There's too much uncertainty that's being faced by the families who are left to wonder about the circumstances of the crash and to question. And then there's a question of liability. Perhaps that is what the administration, the PPPC administration, perhaps that's what they're running from. It also raises concerns about the mental health of the family, the mental health of the survivors as well. And then the editorial raises the issue and the comparison of the Maria fire survivors, saying that if that is anything to go by, the People's Progressive Party civic-led administration leaves much to be desired. Folks, this editorial is required reading in today's Sabbath News. Another issue they raise is transparency. Transparency, it says, is not optional. Transparency is not optional, Minister of Governance Gil Teixeira, but it's a fundamental responsibility of the government. The editorial asserts the government must, and I quote, the government must understand that public trust is not something you can take for granted. Transparency is not a luxury. It is a fundamental responsibility. It is a fundamental responsibility. And perhaps we close on this point. That by withholding the truth, the government risks undermining its legitimacy and the public confidence. And where legitimacy is concerned, you and I know they already have an asterisk next to that. The way the last election unfolded, the editorial concludes by stating, and I quote, when the government fails to live up to this responsibility, it puts its own legitimacy at risk. In the case of the helicopter crash, report, the government has a simple choice. It can either continue to withhold the information, it can continue to withhold the truth, allowing suspicion and distrust to fester, or it can take the necessary steps to be open with the public and restore some semblance of confidence. Now, that's going to be a tall task. That's going to be a very tall task. Again, two very important pieces of information making the rounds this week in March the 8th, 2025. The Tupui contract and what the Public Procurement Commission is now saying. And then this editorial of the Sabbath News on that fateful GDF helicopter flight. And what has happened since then, since the crash. We're going to leave it there, folks. Until our next broadcast, that's our time. And that's our program. Stay safe.